Hey Ray, congratulations on the field and all that. I don't know the best way to put it, but anyway. So you've talked about before, just how this stuff is not about you; it's about the people around you, the coaches, the players, personnel. Why do you feel that way?
Because it's true. I mean, it really is. It's I know that it's a great honor, and I'm humbled, but it's not about me. I'm just the guy that was driving the bus had a good time. You go back in history, I knew what Bobby Richardson did here. I knew what June Raines did here. And I was able to capitalize on the foundation that they laid, and they were in a position to win national championships as well. And they helped us get there. And the players that played for them and then played after that, it's a collective group. So when I saw the first stencil of the name on the field, it was like it's just a representation of what's happened here for Carolina baseball.
Ray, how did you find out that this was happening, and what was your initial reaction and emotions going when you first heard?
Well, my initial reaction was, I think I can put a stop to this. I think I'm the athletic director at the time, and I think that I can slow this thing down, if not stop it. So it was a number of years ago that Dr. Steve Eigenbrot, who's the athletic director at Towson now, he was in development, and I heard the rumblings that he had spoken to a number of donors, and this could be something that might come to pass. And I was like, nah, that's great, I appreciate it, but I'm working here, and I think that's probably inappropriate and probably not worthy as well. So let's slow down or put the brakes on this. So I held it off for a pretty good while, and I think it was Dr. Amaritas who finally told me a while back, maybe even a year ago, that this is going to happen. And I said, no, it's quite all right. We don't need to do this. And he said, it wasn't a question. And I said, so here we are.
Coach, the stadium opened in 2009. You won your first national championship in 2010. How much did the stadium have to do with that from a recruiting standpoint? And can you take us through some of your memories about coming out? I remember coming out here when it was nothing but a field, and I think we took batting practice or something. Can you take some memories about getting it built and how you worked on that yourself?
I tell you, I could go in a lot of different directions here, but don't interview Justin Smoke, whatever you do. Because when I recruited him, I said, hey, you're going to play in a brand new stadium. Well, they don't get built like next week, so that was part of it. You talked about taking batting practice on the field. It wasn't going to work because the field wasn't going to be finished for his last season, his draft year. And he reminded me of that quite often. You sat in my living room and said I'd play in a new stadium. So that's when I talked to the people that were way above me to have batting practice scheduled when it was just under construction. So those guys could come work out on the field. So I could always say, I told you we'd get you in the new stadium. So that was quite fun. But when Dr. McGee hired me, he told me, he said, we will make some immediate improvements to the stadium, Sarge Fry Field, and then we'll build something new. And he said, it won't be overnight. I said, I understand. I said, I just really need the resources to go recruiting, the wherewithal to create a good environment, and those other things will fall into place. And that's what happened. It takes longer than you think sometimes to build a stadium. Not to bore you, but we started out at Sarge Fry Field. And the infrastructure over there was going to be like $6 million back in the day. And when I said, well, what am I going to see for $6 million? They said, it's infrastructure. You don't see anything. That just gets it ready to be built. And I go, I don't think that's a good idea. So then we went behind Colonial Life Arena with some space back there because you had some parking already there, and there were some issues with soil behind the arena. Then we went to over by the front of Colonial Life Arena to the right, used to be intramural fields, which is parking now. and we were going to have to move the road out. So that was like the third location, and then we landed here, and we found granite. I don't know who made all the money off the granite, but somebody did well. But that slowed it down a little bit. But if you remember, we built this stadium from start to finish in 13 months. Kudos to contract construction, and we had all that granite. We might have got it done in 10 or 11 months without having to remove all the granite. But it was exciting. I can remember the day we started laying turf. We had like a parade out beyond right field. People were driving by during their lunch hour, like looking at it come to pass because it was dirt. And then they brought in those 18-wheelers with the sod on it, and all of a sudden it's ready to play. I was a royal pain in the rear because that fall we practiced here without any stands. They were building them. There were jackhammers going everywhere, but we were practicing. And that's not ideal to build a stadium without putting in the grandstand first and then putting the field down. But I said, I got to practice here in the fall. I can't play my first game in the spring of '09 without practicing in the fall. And somehow they let me do that. And I thought that was a big asset for us. So we opened up. We had worked out on the field. That was a long answer, Teddy. Sorry.
On the stadium, I know I saw that you loved like Camden Yards so much that you wanted to model like right field after Camden Yards. How many hours do you think you spent on the design part of this, of trying to make sure every little detail was exactly how you wanted? And were there a couple things that you're like, hey, we got to make sure like this is this way or this is like this?
Well, because, as I said earlier, when you plan a project like this, it's not going to happen quickly. So you have time to take a look at different places and things you would like. And the late Dr. Andrew Sorensen was the president at the time, and I remember distinctly. He called me up to Osborne one day, and he said, hey, this stadium is taking off. If it doesn't get built the way you want it, it's your fault. And I was obviously very intimidated by that statement. And he had his CFO standing nearby, Rick Kelly at the time. And I said, well, thank you. Thank you very much. And he said, now, if you get carried away, this man here will tell you you're spending too much money. And I said, okay, well, I got some ideas. We'll see where we go. So that's what I did. I mean, I took the concourses sort of out of Arkansas, their stadium, and how much concourse space they had. We couldn't, at Arkansas at the time, you couldn't walk all the way around the stadium. That was one thing I wanted their fans to be able to do, to completely walk around the field except for the batter's eye. We also measured the batter's eye at Arkansas. They had one of the best ones in the country, so we duplicated that. Left field seats from Johnny Rosenblatt Stadium in Omaha. Camden Yards, right field, where you could stand. We didn't have Boog's Barbecue, but that would have been nice too. And then like from Sarge Fry Field to over here, I've personally measured from foul line, first base, and third base to the first row of seats, because I wanted our fan base to be exactly where they were as far as the distance is concerned. And then there was conversations about we're going to do a certain number of chair backs and then bleacher seats. And I go, no, we're not going to do any bleacher seats. We're going to put all chair backs in the lower bowl. Well, it's more expensive, so I had to fight through some of those things. But it was a blast. I mean, people say, during your career, what really was the most fun you ever had? You were part of, the men and women in 17 in the Final Four, and you won some big games and all the things you did. Building this stadium was an absolute rush, because I was here almost every morning with a hard hat and a gator. Greg Hughes, contract construction. I'm not sure that he wanted me here that often, but it was fun. And I would visit with all the subs on the job, and they thought that I was part of another sub most of the time, because I was dressed to work. I just evaluated more than I worked. But it was a blast. It was fun. So and to see it come out of the ground so quickly, it was awesome. The tunnel was the hardest part about building this stadium. And there was some speculation that maybe we pull back on that tunnel because it's a long ways, and I said, no, I got to have a tunnel. That's the way you do it. So, but it was fun.
Back to you, right, John?
You've had some characters come through here, whether it's like a Michael Roth or a Trey Dyson, and some teams that have been unique in their personality with the spirit stick or the fish or what have you. What are some of the shenanigans that you take away from some of these teams that are some of your favorite moments like that?
You just never know. You just never know how people are going to turn out. You know, when we recruited Michael Roth, I knew he was a great student, and it was very much a part of his decision making coming to Carolina. But the personality that he brought, I'll give him some credit, especially in my latter years. He was like, I got this, you know, because he could tell when I was getting ready to coach up a young player, and he was like, I'll handle this, because he wanted that young player to be able to play tomorrow. And after I talked to him, he probably couldn't play for a week. So he was good. But there were so many things you talked about. Fear of the fish. My daughter has a fish, and she asked me, was LB going to be here this weekend? I said, what? I said, you don't know LB. She said, he had the fish. She said, I got a fish. We need to talk. So it's just a lot of crazy things, you know, the whole spirit stick. And, you know, you go, really? I mean, LB took that fish on a road trip because he had nobody to feed the fish while he was gone. So he gets on the bus with that fish bowl, and I'm thinking, I got to go compete. I know we're going to Auburn. I said, we got to go compete in Southeastern Conference competition, and I got a guy who's one of my best hitters, and he's got his goldfish with him. What are my chances? Yeah, it's kind of scary, but you know what? They had fun. And baseball's a game that you can't play with a tremendous amount of stress. You got to have some balance, and that was a credit to them and their makeup, because I don't want to say that I coached them hard, but I was a hard coach at practice. On game day, I didn't. I cheered, but I was so crazy about making mistakes fundamentally. That was tough. I was tough on them in practice, and wanted them to be prepared and stay in a position to win. But it was important that they had fun. Sometimes it was hard for me when I'd look in the dugout and I'd see, you know, guys wearing cups for eyeballs or whatever they were doing, and things that were going on. And Roth would say, hey, don't look behind you. You know, I'm like, what are we doing? He said, we're just getting ready to play. Okay, whatever. But I've had some fun groups, some good groups, and that was harder for me early in my career. It was a little bit hard because I was too rigid.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, because we've heard the stories about how you kind of went from the real hard ass and eventually kind of caught up with the fun part of the game with the players and loosened up. Was there a particular moment in time when it hit you that you needed to make some changes within yourself? Was there a particular player that maybe came to you and said, Coach, we need to kind of ease up a little bit?
Well, the first player who called me out was Adam Everett, who came with me from NC State, and he was a first-round draft pick at shortstop. And he and I, to this day, are very close. We stay in touch, and he's with the Phillies. He's an instructor in the Phillies organization, and he told me after he got drafted and he was leaving, and I coached the infielders, and he went from like 135 pounds to 175, and he was a pretty good pick out of high school, I believe, 4th or 5th round. And he went, was he that high? And then he went to a first round, and he told me when he left, he said, hey, you need to relax a little bit. I said, what? He said, you need to relax and you need to allow your players a little room. And I said, you want me to change? I'm just telling you, I think it would help us. Well, I didn't change the next day, So I evolved over time. So it took me a few years to get there, and I think probably Skip Burtman had a lot to do with it as well, because I spent 2 summers with him, 95 and 96, and he told me that you're a little bit too hard on your players. I did it with the USA team as well, but not. I never felt like I didn't feel like the words you used. I just felt like I was a stern instructor, and he said you gotta let things go a little bit, and it'll be okay. And I said, okay, well, so I think it made a difference, and I watched him, and he was very positive and optimistic all the time. I think sometimes I tried to prepare not to fail, and he always prepared to be successful. And so I'm living through this for a couple of summers. Like, very rarely did anything negative enter into the picture, and I knew the negative existed, but he dwelled all with the positives. And a lot of the players thought they could walk on water, and I think sometimes my players didn't know if they were going to have cement blocks on their feet or not. So it was a little bit different, but there was an evolution, and players change you. They do, and then I had children of my own later in life, and I think that the word perspective comes back into play. I told this story. I've told this story many times. When I had Scott Wingo as a freshman, I was hard on him, because in that parking lot right there, his dad said, "Hey, you got to be tough on Scotty. You got to coach him hard." And he said, "Every day you got to be on him." And I'm like, "You're okay with that?" He said, "Well, yes, I'm okay." Now, his mama ain't going to be okay, but I'm okay. And so that was it. And I was pretty tough on him. And I remember thinking, it just hit me one day, he's somebody's child. He's his mama's young man. For me, he was just a second baseman. And I'm like, okay, this is, maybe I should take it a little bit differently at times. The late Dr. Casper told me one day, he said, "Hey, you should call Wingo tonight after practice one day." I said, "For what?" He said, "You were tough on him today. You need to call him, make sure he's okay." I said, "How about you calling him?" So, because he was our team psychologist before that was a thing. He was with me for all 16 years that I coached, and we've lost him now, but he was a great influence. And there was an evolution, certainly, as a coach, but I think all coaches go through some sort of change during their time, and if they don't, they probably don't last as long.
If I were to say, picture, yourself at South Carolina, are you in the dugout or the Rice Building?
I'd probably say the dugout for sure.
Do you see some similarities, Coach, between you and Coach Maderi, and did you emphasize some of the same philosophies with baseball?
I think so, and we've had a chance to visit a few times. Just a few days ago, we went out to dinner. His wife's name is Karen. My wife's name is Karen. And I think after 2.5 hours, we realized that they were actually with us, because we were just talking baseball. I think we have similar characteristics. I mean, I think he's smarter than I am. He's won 1,505 games, which is the most of any active coach in the game right now. I think his balance has been and will be much better than I was. But we played hard and had great respect for each other, and our teams did. Sometimes that gets lost in competition now in athletics, whether it's at the pro level or intercollegiate level. It just seems like there's too much chippiness, that we go at each other hard, but after the game it was like, we're friends. We talked about the game, and then the next day we talk about it before the game. And we had, he won the national championship in 2009, and we won in 10 and 11. So it was interesting that, I think definitely some similarities.
Any questions, Coach?
your name is now on the field, do you ever think back to a couple moments, and do you ever think like, man, if that didn't happen, or whether it's 2002 or any other year, like, man, this might have not happened. I might have been out of here in, at whatever time. Or do you just think the consistency would have ultimately won out?
I don't know. I knew that when we came here in 1996, and Jim Tolman was with me, and he'll be here this weekend. He was with me for 17 years. And, people would say, wow, Tolman really is a great recruiter. And he was a great recruiter, but we were a two-headed monster. And but the thing about Jim Tolman that is so different than a lot of other coaches, he was a great evaluator. Recruiters, to me, are people that can entice you, can influence you, can convince you that their school is the right place for you to be. But if you didn't get the right player, the recruiting part didn't really play. It's the great evaluation part. So that was, I thought we were going to win when we came here, and we were inheriting a team that wasn't real good, but the two of us thought we would get good enough players to win. We knew that we may have to go recruit 3 shortstops to get one good one, because you were going to tell us, well, thanks for the call, but I'm going here. Then you were going to tell us, I enjoyed my visit, I'm going there. But then I'm going to get him, who might have been just as good as the two of y'all. We had to recruit a little bit deeper when we first got here. It was like, this is Ray Tanner from South Carolina. Where? Would you like to take a visit? Well, I'll get back to you. Well, it wasn't that easy. But we knew we were going to get players, and then we did. I think in our first spring was 1997, and by 2000, we were really, really good. Maybe ranked number 1 in 2000. We were really good. But then I had some tough times, because in 2000 we lost 3-2 in the Super Regional Championship game to go to College World Series. After I think we were 50-6 in the regular season that year. It was incredible, and we had good players all over the place. Kip Balknight, Smoke, Havens, had the players everywhere. And then in 2001 we did it again. So we were back in the same boat, Super Regional, chance to go to Omaha, out of Stanford, split the first 2, the third game, rubber game, 3-2. We lost again. So 2000 I lose 3-2. 2001 I lose 3-2. And I'm like, this is, you can't. I never talked about winning the conference, winning the tournament. I always talked about being in a position. If you're in good position, good things can happen. Well, we were in position and it didn't happen. We were good, but it didn't happen. And in 2002, I remember it was like it was yesterday. We were losing 4-1 in the 9th inning. And it was our last 3 outs, and the thought came through my mind, well, at least we're not going to lose 3-2 today. But I had wrestled with those 2 years that, it's just a game. You got to be in position to win, and you don't. But is your time coming? And here I was again. I was going to miss out again in 2002. And somehow we scored a bunch of runs and kicked the door in, and then we went a few more times and had a little bit of a drought, but we went back. And that's the thing, you just stay in position to do that. But those couple years where we had really good players, and we didn't get through to the World Series.
Coach, appreciate your time. Thank you.
That's it. Coach Manier's not going to be here for like 19 minutes.
He was here.
Oh, he did? I appreciate you guys. I really do. I haven't been in a baseball environment in a long time, but many of you, some younger than others, but many of you were around when we started and gave us great coverage and helped us, and that was important. I remember Coach Bertman telling me, "Hey, you got to do the media." I'm like, "Nah, I don't want to do the media." "Oh yeah, you got to talk to the media. You got to make sure they know you got a game. you got to get your score on TV." So it was all good stuff. We had a lot of fun though. So I'm looking forward to seeing the guys this weekend more than anything else, and I know we're going to have a little bit of a story time together. They'll make up stuff, I'm sure, but I'll get the last word in. You guys.
Your name is written on the field. Can we literally go throw dirt on your name?
Might be a good idea. If Coach Manera gets tossed this weekend, that might be an act he takes. But here's the thing. With my name there, there's room that you can add a couple words underneath it. That's the scary part. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, the best coach in the history of the United States. Hey, I'm just a warm-up act.